Tupac Shakur was shot multiple times, and on day 2 of this highly anticipated murder trial against Duane Keefe D. Davis, jurors saw exactly what those bullets did to the superstar rapper.
He died of gunshot wounds of chest and abdomen.
As witnesses took the stand and described the gunshots and what they saw in the moments after, the defense argued
he died of gunshot wounds of chest and abdomen. That is the official cause of death, entered into the record of Clark County, Nevada. But those 8 words do not begin to describe what those bullets actually did to Tupac Shakur. On day 2 of the trial against Duane Keefe D. Davis, the prosecution did not just present a medical conclusion, they presented a map of violence. A forensic pathologist named Dr. Lisa Gavin walked the jury through the autopsy records photograph by photograph, wound by wound. And what she described was not a single fatal shot.
Dr. Lisa Gavin, a forensic pathologist and medical examiner for Clark County. Now, she wasn't the original doctor who performed Tupac's autopsy. That doctor has since passed away. But she reviewed the records, the photographs, the medical reports from 1996, and she formed her own conclusions about what happened to Tupac Shakur. Notably, we learned that as she began to walk the jury through the autopsy photos, several members of Tupac's family got up and left the courtroom. Not surprising when you consider what's going on the screen. But Dr. Gavin continued that this is what she told the jury about how Tupac died.
After reviewing all of those records, do you have an opinion as to the cause of death of Mr. Shakur?
Yes.
And what is that?
He died of gunshot wounds of chest and abdomen.
And do you have an opinion as to the manner of death?
Yes.
And what is that?
Homicide.
When a medical examiner uses the term homicide, what does that mean?
The simplest form is death at the hands of another.
It was a systematic destruction of the human body. She told the jury about a bullet that entered near the armpit, traveled across the right lung, collapsed that lung, filled the chest cavity with 2 liters of blood, and forced doctors to remove the lung entirely in a failed attempt to save him.
Dr. Gavin then walked the jury through each wound, starting with the chest. The bullet had apparently entered near his armpit, traveled across his right lung, and lodged near his collarbone. The lung collapsed, filled with 2 liters of blood. Doctors removed the lung, trying to save him. And here's how she described it.
This is the right side of the body up by the chest area. You can see the right axilla or armpit in that region. And then you could see some of the sutures of what they call a thoracotomy incision, where they've cut into the side of the chest. And then just below that, this is an entrance gunshot wound.
And then just below that thoracotomy chest, there appears to be a stitched up area. I can move my mouse too, right there. What is that?
That's a sutured chest tube site.
So he had a tube there to help drain some of what was going on in his body.
Correct, and in the previous one that had all the medical intervention, you could see from the left side there was a similar chest tube on that left side.
From your review, were you able to determine sort of the path of this particular bullet?
Yes.
And what was that?
It entered here in the right lateral aspect of the chest, just below the axilla, the armpit, and then went across the right chest space, went across the right lung, and then ended up coming to rest in what we call the sternal notch. The sternal notch is a location just between where your collarbones kind of meet up towards the center of your chest. So just beneath that, the projectile was recovered.
The nature of that type of wound, what did it physically do to him, his ability to breathe and those types of things?
So the injury to the lung would have collapsed the lung and also caused the lung to bleed. And so it was documented within the medical records that he had about 2 liters of blood in his chest cavity when they put in the chest tube to try to save him. And similarly, they ended up removing that lung to try to save him and kind of clamp off the bleeding. And then it already had already had multiple episodes of not becoming responsive, so he wasn't able to breathe. He was bleeding out in that area from that injury.
Anne. She told them about a second bullet that entered the right thigh, traveled upward into the abdomen, shredded the intestines, and required surgeons to cut out a portion of his bowel just to recover the projectile.
Sidebar. The second bullet that entered his right thigh and traveled up to his abdomen, that projectile was actually recovered. Take a listen.
This is the right lateral aspect of his body, so his right flank and his lateral aspect of his right thigh. And then his backside of his right hand is also within this picture.
The ruler, though, is identifying what?
The ruler is around the right lateral aspect of his thigh, so the right thigh on the lateral side.
And what is that?
And that's an entrance gunshot wound.
And can you tell me the path that bullet took?
Yes.
And go ahead.
That bullet entered in the lateral aspect of the right thigh and then went upwards into the abdomen and damaged his intestines. They ended up operating there and removed a portion of his intestines, and then during that surgery they recovered another projectile.
The medical language was cold. The reality was not. Imagine the body as a sealed room. Now imagine someone punching 2 holes in the walls of that room and then standing back while the pressure drops and the structure caves in from the inside. That is what the jury heard. And that is why the prosecution started here. Before any talk of motives or gang affiliations or media confessions, they needed to establish one simple fact. Tupac Shakur did not die of natural causes. He was not the victim of an accident. He died at the hands of another. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you are subscribed to the VerdictOrigin, because we do not just cover the story, we follow the evidence. The prosecution's case is built from the ground up, and ground zero is the body itself. Dr. Gavin was not the original medical examiner. That doctor has since passed away, so she reconstructed the findings from old records, from Polaroid photographs, from notes taken nearly 30 years ago, and the defense immediately attacked her for it. They pointed out that she was not there in 1996, that she relied on records she did not create, that the photos were grainy and incomplete. And in a vacuum, that argument sounds reasonable until you hear the prosecution's redirect. They asked her directly whether anything was missing from the records. She said no. They asked whether she was simply parroting the original doctor's opinions. She said she had formed her own conclusions. The cause and manner of death stood: gunshot wounds, homicide. The defense wants the jury to believe that time itself has corrupted the evidence. But time does not erase 2 bullets. Time does not regrow a collapsed lung. Time does not bring back a man who bled out on a Las Vegas operating table. The evidence of murder is permanent. That phrase should sit with you. The evidence of murder is permanent.
So on cross-examination, defense attorney Michael Sampt pressed her on this, that she was relying on records that were decades old, photos that were taken with Polaroid cameras, a record she didn't keep herself. So to me, this is consistent with the defense's argument, which we heard in an opening statement yesterday, that this whole investigation was sloppy, that it was botched, that it was incomplete, that you're talking about a case almost 30 years old. So trying to raise reasonable doubt, trying to raise questions about the reliability of the prosecution's case, the investigative work. And if jurors are perhaps hesitant about one aspect of the prosecution's case or the investigation, perhaps they will not believe the whole case, the whole theory, the whole narrative. Maybe they'll question it. But the prosecution pushed back on redirect. Take a look.
Your testimony here today revolves really around your review of the record that was laid out 30 years ago.
Yes, that's correct.
And so, fair to say, of course, that keeping records would be very important in your line of work.
Yes.
In the event that in the future, something that you do while you're on vacation somewhere in the Bahamas could be testified to by another doctor.
That's correct.
Now, with regards to the records that you saw here, and is it Dr.
Jordan.
Jordan. Was there anything missing in your review of those records in terms of record keeping or anything like that?
No, but we only took a few photos at the time of autopsy. At that time, they used Polaroids, or they used film and cameras. And so we had few photos of the body itself. And so consequently, the crime scene analyst photos were helpful for being able to come to determination in addition to the reports.
Man, Mr. Stamps suggested, and I just want to make it clear, you're not regurgitating Dr. Jordan's opinions. You've formulated your own opinions as the cause and manner of death.
That is correct.
No medical attention, no report, no cooperation.
At that point, was he released and free to go on his way?
Yes, he was.
Later on that evening, did you learn about a shooting involving Tupac Shakur?
Yes, I did.
And then were you asked to then draft a report as to what your interaction was with Mr. Anderson?
Yes, I was.
And at that time, what name did you remember for Mr. Anderson?
It was Orlando. I remember his first name.
Is it anything unusual that when a victim gets attacked and doesn't want to press charges or write a report, for you not to have written a report that night?
No, it's not. Basically, if you don't have a victim, you don't have a crime, as we put it, which isn't necessarily true. You always have a crime. But if you don't have a victim, the chances of prosecution, you won't get any information, and so we don't take a report if the victim refuses.
And the prosecution's implication was obvious. Anderson did not want police involved because he and his crew intended to handle it themselves. That is a common pattern in retaliatory street violence. The victim refuses to become a witness because the plan is already forming. The report that was never written became the opening move in a sequence that ended with gunfire on Flamingo Road. And the defense, again, tried to poke holes. The officer admitted he did not write his report immediately.
He didn't write it immediately after the fight and didn't know if anyone requested more surveillance video that night. So the defense's point again, does this prove a sloppy investigation?
And so the state had asked you a question specifically as to when you wrote your report. You wrote it after you got off of this particular shift. Is that when you wrote your report?
I don't recall when I wrote it, but I'm sure that my officer's report would reflect that time. But I know I didn't write it immediately after.
He did not request more surveillance footage. He could not recall the exact sequence of events. And so the defense hammered the same drum. Sloppy investigation, missing records, faded memories. But sloppy police work does not make a dead man alive. The evidence of murder is permanent. Then came the ear witness, a security guard named William Hyde from the Maxim Hotel, positioned on the 3rd floor of a parking garage near the corner of Flamingo and Koval. He testified that he heard a series of shots, somewhere between 9 and 15 rounds, in 3 separate volleys.
He was on the 3rd floor of the parking garage when he apparently heard something that stopped him cold. Listen to this.
2 Metro officers with me, and we were looking for stolen vehicles. There were 5 or 6 Dodge Caravans that were stolen out of our parking garage that night.
And where were you located when something unusual did happen?
Well, I was on the ramp of the 3rd floor of the parking garage on the southeast side of the property.
And while you were there, describe what you hear.
Well, the 2 officers, another security officer and I were standing around one Dodge Caravan, and we just suddenly heard a lot of gunfire. And we ran to the barrier wall that was overlooking Koval Boulevard, not Koval, Flamingo Boulevard. And that's when I witnessed what I saw.
So you hear a bunch of shots. Do you have any idea how many you heard?
It sounded like a lot.
1 volley, 2 volleys?
3 volleys.
3 volleys.
Yes.
You heard. And when you say a lot, I mean, to some people, can you put any sort of number on it?
I had 3 to 4, maybe even 5 each volley. It was a series of pops.
somewhere between 9 and 15 shots in a series.
Something like that.
He ran to the retaining wall and looked down. He saw a caravan of vehicles stopped in the street. He saw people outside those vehicles, and he saw one man, a young black male in a bright white shirt and a black vest, holding a semi-automatic pistol at his side.
I was armed, so I was leaning over the retaining wall to see what I could see.
And when you look over the wall, what do you see?
I see a line of vehicles in the left straight lane on Flamingo heading east, and there's several vehicles. There was a white Dodge Stratus at the front, a black BMW behind it, another dark car, and I believe another car, and then there was a white Chevy Suburban behind that, and several more cars.
Do you see anybody outside of those vehicles?
Yeah, there were a number of people standing outside of the vehicles in the traffic lanes.
And do you see any of them armed?
One gentleman was armed, one black male adult, very young, well-dressed. He was wearing a very bright white three-quarter sleeve shirt, black pants, and a black dress vest.
And at the time that you see him, is he firing his weapon?
No, he's not, but he does have the weapon in his hand. It was an automatic weapon, automatic pistol.
Semi-automatic pistol?
Yes.
And is he holding it down? Is he pointing it in a direction?
He wasn't pointing it in any direction. It was kind of just off to his side.
What do you see this caravan of cars do?
Well, I looked back because the Metro officers jumped in their cars to pursue, and then when I turned around, everyone was back in their cars again, and they made a U-turn heading west on Flamingo towards Las Vegas Boulevard.
All of the cars in the caravan?
Yes.
And so you see them make a U-turn at Koval and head back towards Las Vegas Boulevard.
Correct.
And those vehicles, you saw the two Metro officers you were with jump in their vehicle to give chase to that caravan.
Correct.
At the time that you're out there and you see somebody with a gun, you've just heard shots fired, is it the conclusion you originally drew that that person was your suspect?
Yes. Yeah. That's what I deduced at the time.
And based upon the officers following that caravan,
He did not see that man fire the weapon, but he saw the weapon. He heard the shots, and then he watched the entire caravan make a U, turn and flee toward Las Vegas Boulevard. The defense immediately noted that Hyde never saw the actual shooting, that he only heard the gunfire and saw the aftermath.
Now, you were investigating at that particular time stolen vehicles out of that garage. Did you write a report on your own with regards to what you were doing that night with the stolen vehicles? And
Actually, no. I turned that report over to my other co-officers at security because I was tied up with this incident.
Okay. I'm going to zoom in a little bit better for you here, sir, if I could. Going back again. That's hopefully more helpful. All right. So when you said that you looked over and you saw, can you explain for us again sort of where the vehicles were that you saw?
Well, the vehicles were on Flamingo heading east, and they were in, you have a left turn lane, two forward lanes, and a right turn lane, and the vehicles were in the farthest left center lane.
Farthest left center lane.
Correct.
Meaning that they were intending on going forward.
Correct.
They're not making that left.
No, but they ended up making a U-turn.
Sure, and once again, for our edification, this is 30 years ago, right? So you've got 3 lanes going directly east, and is that a yes?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And then you have, is it 2 lanes that are actually turn lanes to turn onto Koval, or is it just
Actually, I
one?
believe it was 2 lanes, so it would be from the facing east, it would have been the 3rd lane that they were in. There's 2 turn lanes, 2 straight lanes, and then a right turn lane.
All right. And then with regards to the vehicles themselves, your testimony was that there was a white van of some sort, or maybe vehicle in front of the black BMW.
Yeah, it was a white Dodge Stratus.
I see. Is that a van? No, that's a
No,
car.
it's a 2-door sedan.
Okay. And then behind it is the BMW,
Yes.
and then behind it are multiple cars leading back.
Yes.
And your testimony was that you had identified a Lex. Is it a Lexus behind it?
I think it was a Lexus, I believe so.
and then another vehicle, and then a white Chevy, and then it just kept going all the way down.
Correct.
So even though we're identifying these vehicles, you don't know how many vehicles were in the procession or the.
It was several. I didn't count them at the time, but it was a good 10 vehicles.
Okay. And all those vehicles are now making a U-turn and heading back towards Las Vegas Boulevard.
Correct.
You don't see the actual shots being, someone actually pointing a gun at something and shooting something.
No, I did not.
You just heard it.
Yes.
The individual that you had identified as the person with a gun,
Yes.
did you see that individual shoot his weapon?
No.
All right.
And that is true, but it is also irrelevant. You do not need to see the bullet leave the barrel to understand the sequence of events. 9 to 15 shots. A man with a gun standing outside the vehicles. A coordinated U-turn. A caravan escaping together. This is not evidence of chaos. It is evidence of choreography. A planned attack followed by a coordinated retreat. And when a witness says he heard 3 volleys of gunfire, and then saw a man holding a firearm, the average person does not need a forensics degree to understand what happened. The evidence of murder is permanent.
Okay, so we're continuing our coverage of the Duane Keefe D. Davis trial out in Las Vegas, the only person ever charged with the murder of Tupac Shakur, who we know was gunned down out in Las Vegas in 1996. Now, yesterday was the opening statements. It was day 1 of the trial. It was the beginning of witness testimony. The prosecution alleges that Davis orchestrated the killing of Tupac Shakur, that it was because Shakur and others allegedly beat up his nephew, Orlando Anderson, earlier in the night at the MGM Grand. They plan to use Davis's own alleged statements over the years in media interviews, a memoir, law enforcement interviews, statements that the prosecution claims Davis admitted to his involvement. Now, the defense argues those statements were exaggerations, that you can't believe what Davis said, that there is nothing to corroborate that he was telling the truth about his alleged involvement in what happened with Tupac.
Now, the question the defense wants the jury to ask is whether the investigation was too flawed to trust. They want doubt to creep into every crack. An old Polaroid, a delayed police report, a witness who did not write things down that night. They want the jury to believe that 30 years of distance equals 30 years of uncertainty. But ask yourself this: if the state can prove the murder itself beyond any doubt, and if the defense is spending all its time attacking the quality of the investigation, rather than offering an alternative version of events, then what exactly is the defense defending against? That is the ticking clock question. Because if the case was truly so weak, they would not need to attack the record keeping. They would simply show you the truth, and they cannot. Finally, the prosecution called an investigator from MGM Resorts to authenticate the surveillance footage from the night of the beating. The video was degraded. It was recorded on reused VHS tapes. No one could definitively identify every individual in the frame, but the video showed what the prosecution needed it to show. A confrontation happened. An attack happened. It happened on camera.
That I should mention is when the prosecution called Michael Ingram, an investigator for MGM Resorts, to authenticate the surveillance footage from the night of this alleged beating. The video, which was captured on VHS tapes that were reused and degraded over time, showed, or seemingly showed, the confrontation between Tupac's entourage and Orlando Anderson in the elevator core of the MGM Grand. Personally, I have been there so many times. I used to go to Vegas all the time. I used to stand by that elevator bank all the time. I know it very well. Now, Ingram walked the jury through that footage, showing Anderson allegedly being attacked and then seemingly fleeing through the casino floor towards the lion entrance. On cross-examination, the defense pressed Ingram on what he didn't know. He wasn't working at MGM in 1996. He didn't know if security reports were written. He couldn't verify the date and timestamps on the video beyond what was already recorded. The video itself was very grainy. No one could definitively identify anyone in it, but it seemingly established one very important thing: that this attack happened, and it happened on camera. But for the prosecution, they are hoping that in the minds of the jury, it established one very important thing.
And that attack became the accelerant for everything that followed. The beating led to the shooting. The shooting led to the autopsy. The autopsy led to the words that opened this trial. Gunshot wounds of chest and abdomen. Homicide. The publicly available court records from Clark County contain the full autopsy report and the witness testimony from day 2. Go read them yourself. Do not take our word for it. Ask yourself one question in the comments below. If Duane Davis was not involved, why did every thread in this case lead back to the same night, the same motive, and the same caravan on Flamingo Road? We will be following this trial every single day. Make sure you like this video. Share it with someone who still believes this case is unsolvable. Subscribe to the VerdictOrigin and turn on notifications so you do not miss a single filing, because this is not just a murder trial. It is a stress test of whether evidence can survive 3 decades of erosion. And right now, the evidence is still holding.